edition of Pure Picks. We're joined here by Gerard for the breakdown of UFC Fight Night, Rozenstruik versus Gaziev. How are you doing today, Top G?
Not too bad. Um, we're in the green. We could have had a better day, but we're looking to have better plays this week.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's recap what happened at UFC Mexico. A solid night overall. I think it could have been a Giga Green night if a couple people just pulled through in the last couple of fights. Going over some of the plays that we had for the week, we were overall 1.6 units up, 22% ROI. So solid, right? But it could have been a much bigger night. I think the first one that I want to go over was the Jesus Aguilar debatable decision. I think it was a split decision. And personally, even though I picked Jesus to win, I thought Mendoza, Mateus won. So I think that we got a little bit lucky on that side there. Another one that we had, yeah, I mean, a win's a win at the end of the day. So I'm glad that we're on that side because he was our only dog pick. Another parlay that I wanted to go over was the one at the bottom with Yasmin Heregi, Dos Santos, Naimov. Obviously, Naimov won first round. Silva injured himself, but I think that fight would have gone Naimov's way. Yasmin was definitely a lock. She 30-27, Sam Hughes, and Dos Santos was another somewhat debatable one. I think that was a split decision, and it really could have gone either way, but I think that we were on the right side of that. Alta Moreno was a minus 2100 though at the end, so I was actually kind of surprised that Dos Santos got the decision there. But yeah, I mean, we cashed those. Really, the only ones that we didn't cash were Yair Rodriguez and Brandon Moreno. And I guess I want to talk about Rodriguez because I was really confident in him, actually. I thought that I really thought he was going to get that KO first round, but he showed some horrible fight IQ, which he's shown throughout his career, in my opinion, and also a gaping grappling hole. I mean, this guy was just taken down by Brian Ortega, not really known as a takedown artist, right? He definitely has some takedowns, but not to the level of like a Volkanovski, for example, and still just lost. So in hindsight, I think that was a bad pick. We probably should have gone with a dog there because I think in the first fight, Rodrigo was a dog, and I think that he's probably just a little bit better as a dog as opposed to going with the favorite in that kind of matchup. Because in that kind of matchup, I think it could go either way. If you played 10 times, I think maybe half of them go Yair's way and half of them goes Ortega's way. So, I think in the future, that's probably something that we'll hold off on. Gerard, you had anything that you want to talk about as far as the recap?
Um, well, we had that over 2.5 on the Yasmin and Hughes, and I think I parlayed that with Ricky Tercios over 2.5, but that one was moved to this week. But we got the Sam Hughes to cash. I mean, she's hard to finish, so I really saw Yasmin winning, but not being able to finish Sam Hughes in that one. Um, the Brandon Moreno one, that one was was a pretty it was a close fight, but I guess the odds were pretty weren't good odds, I think, on Brandon Moreno. And yeah, we just thought that he would still be championship caliber, but we saw that he showed fatigue in the later rounds. Even though I thought that Moreno was having the cleaner shots, um, Royval was a dog in there and just kept putting on the volume and then wasn't getting tired and just kept coming forward, even though he was eating some of those big right hands and hooks from Moreno. So yeah, close fight, but yeah, the odds should have been much closer for this
Yeah,
for that one.
yeah, definitely. I think the how the fight played out, the value was definitely on the Royval side. So, two misses there. If we had those two hit, it would have been a much better night. But we'll take a positive night over a negative night. I think that's the ultimate goal here is always to cash. 5 out of the last 6 events we have cashed. We've only had one losing event so far, one Giga Green night last UFC 298. So, we're going to just keep on trucking along. I think that the process, we're going to trust in it, trust in the process, and keep continuing. And like I always say, it's on to the next one. And we have another great opportunity to cash some plays in here. UFC Fight Night, Rozenstruik versus Gaziev. This is gonna, man. To be honest, this card is not that great as far as the quality of some of these fights. I don't know how they came up with some of these fights, but I think they got a contract to fulfill with Endeavor, so let's get to it. Um, First fight that we have is going to be, and I'm going off of Tapology, so I don't know if this is the exact order because I've seen some conflicting order of the fight card, but going off of Tapology, we're going with Kristen Leroy Duncan versus Claudio Ribeiro. CLD 9-1. He is 4-1 his last five. He's coming off that KO finish over Dennis Talulin, fighting against Claudio Ribeiro 11-4, 3-2 in his last five, and he's actually coming off a head kick KO loss to Roman Kopylov. As we look at for the odds for this fight right now, we have CLD at minus 265. And the interesting thing about this one is he opened up at a plus 210. So he was a 2-1 dog, now a 2-1 favorite over the course of about a week and a half. So interesting stuff there. Gerard, I'll let you break down this fight first. What do you think about CLD versus Ribeiro here?
This fight, I think CLD is going to be the dangerous, much more dangerous guy in this fight. In terms of striking, he's just more skilled and more dynamic in his shots. The one thing that I do worry about is CLD's grappling, and if Claudio Ribeiro goes in there with a heavy grappling game plan, this could be tough on CLD, and he might get tired if Claudio's able to grapple and get him get him down. Uh, Claudio does have the power, but he doesn't have the technical or quick enough or the quicks to to strike with CLD, I believe. And CLD is long, so that's another danger factor there. And I think, yeah, I probably see Leroy Duncan finishing Ribeiro in this fight, and I just worry about if he throws some dumb strikes, some high risk shots like he did against Armin, that he could get caught and be on his back potentially against Ribeiro. But I'm still picking CLD in this one. I think he can get Ribeiro out of there.
Awesome. I mean, do you feel confident enough to lay him in any kind of parlays, going from a 2-1 dog to 1 favorite?
Um, I would put him maybe in one
Mhm.
parlay, but not in too much. I'm like at a medium confidence on Leroy Duncan.
For sure. Yeah, so going over my notes right now, and kind of interesting. This is the fight on the whole fight card that I took the most notes on. I guess it just turned out that way somehow. By the way, raw notes will be available as a Pure Pick Pro benefit for the members. It's going to be $10 a month, guys. Got to check out purepicks.gg to access those raw notes and all of our plays. Alex already put in a play. It's a parlay that he had that he just thought of today, and he's been on a heater. So to see that play, check out purepicks.gg and get that Pure Picks Pro membership, guys. Going back to CLD, man, my first introduction to this guy was the Armin Petrosian fight. I was on him. I thought that he was gonna go and just smoke Armin Petrosian, and I was wrong. Came in and did like a clown show kind of fight. Although that probably wasn't the best introduction to him, though. Just going back over the rest of his career, you see that he's a pretty smooth and powerful striker. multifaceted stand-up game, has the capability to fight a clean technical fight. However, like I mentioned, he does incorporate some flashy strikes at times, some flying attacks, spinning attacks, knees, elbows, kicks, all those kind of fancy attacks. He showed his back to Armin Petrosian. If you guys watched that fight, he actually just turned around and showed his back. He keeps his hands low too, and just a lot of clown tactics in there for a guy that I don't think he should be fighting like that. I think he's a much better fighter than that. He did fight clean and safer in his last win versus Denny Talulin. Used a lot of clinch work along the fence, controlled the majority of the fight in the clinch, avoided taking damage when and was able to dish out some methodical knees, some clinch strikes. He does have some KO power, obviously. I mean, 9 career wins, 7 are KOs. That's 78% of his wins. He has 2 KOs in the UFC already, albeit one of them was a knee injury. Still 2 KOs. The grappling is the portion that I think is going to be the determining factor in this fight. Like you mentioned, Gerard. I mean, CLD has not proved much grappling thus far in his career, aside from that clinch work in the UFC at least. He has a 50% takedown defense, and he was actually taken down by Armin Petrosian in that fight and controlled by for 3 minutes and 21 seconds. And Armin Petrosian is not anyone's idea of a good grappler, so that is a little bit concerning for me. The pre-UFC tape showed me that he does have the ability to have good takedown defense and get back up. Also, he has an ability to mix in his own takedowns if needed when he sees an opening. So I think he's a solid fighter. I mean, Ribeiro is a powerful slugger, likes to constantly move forward, get in a brawl, KO, looks for the KO. He has decent boxing technique. I think he likes to move forward and even try to counter while moving forward. Powerful leg calf kicks. I mean, this guy has some really powerful leg calf kicks. 11 KO wins, that's 100% of his wins. So this guy's looking for one thing and one thing only is to KO you. The bad thing about Ribeiro is that he has horrible striking defense, 31% striking defense. He's been KO'd twice in the UFC already. He was up on two judges' scorecards in round one versus Kopylov and proceeded to get head kick KO'd within the first 33 seconds of round two. So perhaps not a guy that you can trust in a striking matchup against a better striker. I think that he does show some okay takedown defense, tries to get back up. If you watch the Joseph Holmes fight, Joseph Holmes took him down, but Ribeiro got back up. He does seem to be a little uncomfortable grappling unless he is the aggressor, though. He seems to be more comfortable grappling against the cage. He landed a takedown on Holmes after chopping Holmes up on the feet. And you also have to kind of show the powerful ground and pound as well. Overall, I believe that CLD should be able to turn this into a technical kickboxing fight and finish Claudio similar to how Kopylov did. However, as long as he doesn't take this fight like lightly, if he takes Claudio seriously, not showing his back, keeping his hands low, not doing those clown tactics, I think he should expose Claudio's weak striking defense and tendency to move forward and walk to clean strikes. So the pick here is CLD via KO. However, for now, I'm staying away from this as that was just very concerning for me, seeing how he got taken down by Armin. And I know that Claudio is a better grappler than Armin. So we'll see what happens. Maybe along at end of the week, I'll be more confident in CLD, but for now, I'm probably going to hold off him as any kind of play. Let's move on to the next fight here that we have on the prelims. We have Loik Radzhabov versus Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwady. Loik is 17-5-1. He is 3-2 in his last five. He's actually coming off of that KO loss to Mataus Rebecki, fighting against Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwady. 15-3. He's 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off that Dana White Contender Series victory via decision. As we look for the odds on this fight, we see that Abdul-Kareem opened up at plus 150 and now is a minus 169. So first two fights right off the bat, we had dogs open up and now they're favorites. So a lot of people are taking some action on some of these dogs that were initially released. Gerard, what do you think about this fight between Loik and Abdul-Kareem here?
This fight Loik, he's gonna have the size and the strength advantage, I believe, but I think he might be too slow to react against Abdul. I think Abdul he moves pretty well. He has good footwork, good volume, good pace, and Abdul's pretty good at finding positions and grappling. Um, Radzhabov, I think they could both these guys can grapple for sure, and I think Abdul can do some good work with some leg kicks on Radzhabov, slow him down, and pick up pick apart Radzhabov just from volume and footwork and just piecing him up. Uh, Radzhabov has been in there with some pretty good fighters, but we see that he can slow down. And to me, it seems Kareem, he can keep going at a high pace through 3 rounds. And I'm going to agree with the line movement here. I think Selwady can definitely just out volume and outwork Radzhabov, but Radzhabov is going to be a tough opponent here for your first match in the UFC. So yeah, I'm going to lean Abdul, but it's like a low confidence in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a tough one to gauge this fight. We have two guys who have kind of distinctive skill sets that are a little different, right? I mean, Loik is obviously more of the wrestler, in my opinion, likes to push that grappling pace and just turn an MMA match into a wrestling match. His first UFC debut fight against Esteban Ribovic, he secured 11 takedowns and shot 21 times. That's a lot. So he had 7 minutes and 39 seconds of control time. That just goes to show that it's not the best. He doesn't have the best control, but he will continue shooting. He has 5 sub wins, however, all have come from non UFC PFL bouts. So those sub wins might not hold up very strongly going forward. His striking is okay. I think he likes to just throw some wild power shots and hopefully maybe like land overhand and then go into a takedown with it. And this game plan just he did not he was shown levels in his last fight against Rebecca, right? Was out grappled and outstruck. I mean, Rebecca was a much better fighter than him. His legs were absolutely demolished by Rebecca's leg kicks. I think that Al-Selwady is more well rounded than Loik, at least. He's a decent all round fighter. I think that he likes to fight at a high pace, whether that's striking or grappling. Although in the Dana White Contender Series fight, showed off a little bit more striking in that fight. So I think he's going to probably be the better striker in this matchup. He does like to put the pressure on, pump out good pace volume on the feet. The striking, though, to me, it does seem a little basic. I don't think that there's anything really noteworthy about it. He does have some pop to them, but he's more like a quick pop shot kind of guy rather than a KO person. I think that his wrestling and grappling, although he didn't show much of it, he went 1 for 6 on takedowns in the Dana White Contender Series, and I think he landed about 20 minutes. I mean, 2 minutes of control time, so not the best showing for grappling, but his pre UFC tape showed that he does have some good, single double legs, good takedowns, likes to transition quickly to dominant positions, good pressure on top, ground and pound is solid. And Loik has shown, at least to me, to be able to be taken down as well. Yeah, I don't think that he's this guy with crazy good takedown defense. I think that this will be a tough fight to predict. It can go numerous ways. For now, I will just lean towards Loik being able to implement some wrestling on Al-Selwady for a boring decision win. And probably a major reason I'm doing it is because of the Dana White Contender Series fade. So this is going to be his UFC debut. This is going to be Loik's third UFC fight. Um, Pick here is Loik by decision, but I'm staying far away from this. I don't think I'm going to play that at all. Moving on to the next fight, we have the return of Javid Basharat versus Aiemann Zahabi. Javid obviously is 14-0, undefeated. He is 4-0-1 his last five. He's actually coming off that no contest. So he's actually 4-0, but he had that kind of no contest against Victor Henry where he kind of exploded Victor Henry's, groin area and he had to go to the hospital. So that was not a good look. Ivan Zahabi, Ari Hawani, 10-2, 3-2 in his last five. He is coming off of that KO victory over Arichi Ling about 8 months ago. As we look over for the odds for this fight right now, we see that Javid Basharat opened up at a minus 400, and now he's a minus 650. I mean, for me, I want to kind of get started on this because Javid is actually one of my favorite fighters. I know people think this guy's boring, but all he does is win and kind of cash tickets from what I see. So I've had this guy in numerous parlays throughout the years. He's just safe money. Same thing with his brother. They're called the Basharat brothers, right? The Cash brothers. I think that Javid's just a terrific offensive and defensive grappler. I mean, I also think he's a good striker. Stays safe, pumps out good pace and volume, good variety with punches and kicks. He can fight in all distances, the clinch and the outside. Just extremely well rounded. And he's not one of those people who is like well rounded and just not good anywhere. I really do think that he's like a B plus level everywhere, at least. Like I think this guy's really solid, except for power. He might be just like a B minus or a C plus or something like that. I do think that he counters really well, is really light on his feet. He moves really well, targets the body at a great rate too. And his accuracy and how he mixes in his grappling is just really good optics for a decision victory. Like this guy is a machine when it comes to that. He has excellent cardio, can last for 15 minutes, scrambles well. He likes to go for the sub when they open up. Some dangerous chokes. I think his Dana White Contender Series fight, he choked someone to win that fight. So he does have that in his arsenal. And as we look into, his profile a little bit more, I just want to show people that, before the UFC, right, this guy has 6 submission wins, 5 KO wins, 3 decision wins. So, I mean, well-rounded dude. Obviously, he hasn't had many finishes in the UFC thus far, but, you know, those could be coming pretty soon. I think that Zahabi, obviously looks like Arrow Hawani, very similar striking kind of image right there. Decent all around fighter, throws with heavy counter power. I also think that he's for the other guy's brother, right? Fariz or something. Fariz Zahabi,
Yeah,
GSP's coach.
Zahabi.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
GSP's
he's
coach.
the brother. I mean, he's a patient guy. Waits for the opening when his opposition makes mistakes. Low volume. I do think he can get backed up by more aggressive fighters. He has pretty good, grappling. He's never been subbed. 75% takedown defense. However, if you just look back at his opposition, I mean, he really hasn't faced any noteworthy grapplers to me, right? Probably the most noteworthy grappler that he's faced is Ricardo Ramos, maybe. But I think Ricardo's even more of a striker than he is a grappler, in my opinion. So I think that this fight will look somewhat similar to that Ricardo Ramos fight, but just lean towards more the grappling for Javid. Ricardo Ramos was able to take down Zahabi 3 out of 5 times, and he mixed in his takedowns on his way to a KO win. So I believe that Javid will be able to just outwork Zahabi on the feet and the ground in this fight. I think Zahabi's output and volumes is too low for a fighter like Javid, and I believe Javid would expose Zahabi on the ground by holding him down more efficiently than Ramos did. So, as always, the pick here is Javid via decision. Also, could see a sub, but I think this guy's going to decision again. Parlay piece, just stick him in there. Right now, his odds are minus 650. I swear I just said like 625, but now it's 650, so it's changed already a little bit. Gerard, what do you think about Javid versus Aiemann here?
Yeah, Javid is the more well-rounded fighter here. He's a complete fighter. I think just the power, like you said, isn't as much there. But Zahabi, he's gonna be the more dangerous fighter, I think. I think he looks to counter and commit to more powerful strikes. Um, Zahabi, he's older, but I think he looks better than he did before,
Yeah,
even though he hasn't had too much fights since his losses. Uh, he has that fight IQ. He doesn't force anything. He's pretty patient, looking for his shots, um, looking for those counter strikes, and yeah, I mean, he can be dangerous in this one, but I do think that Javid, he's just probably too quick, too disciplined to make those type of mistakes in a 3-round fight here. And I do also probably have Javid scoring more on the cards to a decision here. But with how wide the gap is, I think Zahabi has a decent enough shot if you're looking at the odds. I think there is some value in Zahabi here, but my pick here is still Javid.
for sure. Just to get an understanding, how do you, if Zahabi wins this fight, how do you think his most likely, what do you think his most likely path is to victory as far as like a sub KO decision? Like, what do you think?
Most likely path, I want to say a f- probably a finish or a split decision,
Mm,
but both of those are going to be hard to come by. I think Zahabi's going to have to find a way to hurt Javid early to catch him, like a Richiling, but probably not as devastating because Javid probably won't get caught like that. Um, so he's going to have to get Javid's respect somehow and not be so low volume, I think. But I think he can possibly do it, but it's probably not the most likely outcome because I still have Javid, but I do see how Zahabi might be able to get it done.
yeah. I mean, if Ricky Tercios can survive this guy, I think he can do. I think Javi can do it. I think because I watched that Tercios fight live actually. And, that was a funny, really funny fight. I'm surprised that Ricky even survived that fight. But yeah, moved on to the next fight. We have a debut fight for one guy. We have Vinicius Oliveira. I'm not sure if I said the first name right, but his name is Oliveira. 19-3. His 4-1 his last five. He's coming off of a Dana White Contenders Series victory over Victor Madrigal. He's fighting against Yanis Garimi. 4-1 his last five, 1-4, 4-1 his last five, and he's actually coming off of a KO loss to William Gomes. We're looking at the odds right now. For this fight, Oliveira is minus 180, and he opened up at a minus 150. So at one point, he was actually minus 205. So it's some interesting line movement. What do you think about this fight between Oliveira and Yanis here?
In this fight, Oliveira is going to be the more dangerous guy. I mean, he's athletic, he's explosive. Um, but when I see him striking, he doesn't look that fluid for how he looks athletically. He doesn't really move like a technical, crisp, clean flowing fighter. He I do see that in the past has gotten sloppy when he's tired and getting grappled, and he throws some wild strikes when he's tired and he leaves himself open to make mistakes, get caught, even get dropped before in the past. And for Giannis, Ghemmouri has quick kicks. He has some grappling. He has some submissions under his belt, but I'm not sure if how well those grappling and submission will be effective in this fight. Um, he does tend to stay outside in the kicking range, but uh, he does show some grappling at times. And for me, his style he doesn't give me too much confidence because it seems kind of seems like he's more leans into a point fighter and just being disciplined and defensive and cautious. He usually stays away from danger for the most part, but he has been finished before with a body kick, but that was against like a precision striker in Gomez. Um, so I'm leaning towards the more dangerous guy here in Oliveira, but again, I think there is value in Ghemmouri, but I don't like his style. If he fights like a point fighting style, I would want him to have a more dominating technical skill set. But from what I see, he doesn't have that. So this fight, I'm probably staying away, but I'm gonna lean Oliveira here, and Ghemmouri might be able to get it done though.
Yeah, I'm staying away from this one. Don't have much else to say about this. I think that from what I've seen, Oliveira, he just seems like a guy who likes to just finish the fights, usually by KO. I think he has like 19 KOs or something like that. If we look over his record, he's 19 wins, and I think like something crazy, like 15 of them are KOs. So 79% of his wins are KOs. I think that he does have some good ability in striking, has some good, really good pop in his hands and shots. Kicks, I think, are actually where he shines the most. He has some nice leg kicks, some body kicks as well. So I think he actually is a good striker, a dangerous striker, maybe more so. He does keep his hands low at times. So this can either be a positive or a negative, in my opinion. It can be a positive because if you keep your hands low, your opponents will find it hard to gauge where the shots are going to come from. But going with the negative side, you can just get popped in the face because your guard isn't up. So, I think that just being that wild on the feet and just leaving himself open as shots coming to him could be detrimental for perhaps future opponents. But I don't think he's going to have much to worry about in this fight with this opponent right here with that power. I mean, Yanis, Ghemmouri, he's just that. I've seen so many of these guys already. I mean, he's that classic kind of French European kind of fighter, right? Just low output, good technique. He likes to wait for those counter shots and nice leg kicks. Actually, I think that's probably his best part of the game, just the leg kicks. He has a front kick. He has knees as well. This is going to be Oliveira's UFC debut after that KO win on the Dana White Contender Series. So I'm just staying away just because of that, because those people have not been doing that great in the UFC in their first run at it. This will be Ghemmouri's second UFC bout after that loss to William Gomes. So I'm leaning towards Oliveira getting the KO win based on him being just a much more dangerous fighter with higher finishing equity. Pick here is Oliveira by KO, but I'm staying far away from this fight because I mean, it could go decision even if Yanis, points him and kind of pieces up on the feet. It could be a finish if Oliveira just catches him. So I'm just not sure if there's much value in this fight. Let's move on to the next fight that we have here. We're still on the prelims. I think this is going to be perhaps the last fight on the prelims. So we have Eryk Anders versus Jamie Pickett. Both of these guys are actually UFC veterans at this point. They've been in the UFC for a good amount of time, and some hit and misses are somewhere around there. But I mean, I think they've both done decent considering what their ability is. Eryk Anders, 15-8. He's 2-3 in his last five. He's actually coming off of that Yanis decision loss to Marc-Andre Berchelt. Jamie Pickett, 13-10. He's 1-4 in his last five. He's coming off a loss via decision to Josh Freem. And obviously before that, he was choked out by Bo Nickel. Moving to the odds for this fight, we have Eryk Anders at minus 360, open up at minus 250. Gerard, I'll let you open up this fight as well for the breakdown. What do you think about Anders and Pickett here?
So in this matchup, honestly, both these guys are like fighters that are hard to trust personally, but Eric Anders has the edge because he actually competes. He's competitive against more quality opponents. Um, he's not that fast from what I've seen, and he does get hit, but he does have the power and the grappling. And in this fight, I think he has good size and power for this matchup. Um, I think Eric Anders looks like he's been improving, and for Jamie Pickett, I'm not really sure what I'm seeing from fight to fight, honestly. And but Pickett should be quicker on the feet. He's athletic. Um, if I had to predict something in this fight, I would say the fight could go over 1.5 is my prediction. But if I'm picking a fighter, I'm leaning Eric Anders. But I think the odds should be a little bit closer though, because both these guys are hard to trust money with, in my opinion.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think the odds should be a little closer. Anders, he's a wrestler, uses that professional football background to his advantage in the fights. I mean, this guy's pretty strong. He likes to use the wrestling to grind his way to decision wins. So far in the UFC, though, it's been mixed results. I mean, 3-6 in UFC decisions. So, he's lost more than he's won using that method of trying to grinding the opponents against the cage. I mean, if he can't land the takedown, he just really has no issue in trying to just push people against the cage and holding them there for the majority of the fight. He does have a solid 79% takedown defense. Not the best striker, but he does have some power. Pretty low volume though. I think that Pickett is a average fighter. Actually, I don't think he's that. He's 13-10. I don't think he's that bad. He does have an all round skill set, but the main thing that has been going on with his record and just his fights has been that he's just been outworked in most of these fights. He actually has some decent technique in striking. He has an 80-inch reach and he uses the range well. I think he has some really good straight shots, but he just has low volume. Like he does very hesitant to actually use those shots. And he seems to just think too much in the cage, right? I think that both of these guys actually have a similar kind of grappling game plan, but Anders is able to just hold people against the cage more because of his strength and football background. I will lean towards Ander being able to use his athleticism and power to just cage push Pickett to a decision victory. However, I do think that this is a closer fight than what the odds are saying due to the nature of how this fight could go down because we could see either guy just doing the same thing to each other. So I think there's going to be a lot of grinding, a lot of cage pushing, potential be a snooze fest here. So yeah, I'm staying away from this. Anders via decision, and hopefully, it just ends quickly and we move on to the main card like we are now. So moving on to the main card, we have Rosas Jr. versus Ricky Tercios. I'm not sure if this is official yet, but it's on Tapology. I think Tercios says that unless I haven't been updated yet, he said that he hasn't signed the contract, but I'm assuming that he will sign the contract. So we're just going to say that it's going to be on the main card to open it up. Now, Rosas Jr., obviously, this was supposed to take place in Mexico City. So, we did the breakdown for this with me and Alex, I think, last week. So if you guys want to check that out, feel free. But we'll go over really quickly again, just so you guys can get a sense of what's going on. The odds for the fight right now, it's very similar to what it was last time. I think minus 230, minus 235. So maybe a little bit heavier on Rosas Jr. But Gerard, since this is going to kind of be fresh to you, I know you did this in the best bets video, but has anything changed for you as far as this fight? Seeing how you see it?
Yeah, I think with the change of venue in Vegas, this probably helps Rosas more than Ricky because I think Rosas would have been gassed at elevation, especially in that first round, which he usually does when he has that high octane offense going and going hard at his opponents, grappling and throwing some big shots. Um, he does have that inexperience and that submission threat here, but I think Ricky Ter- Tercios, he'll be able to have the cardio and the volume and the scrambles from getting grappled. I do have Rosas. I'm leaning Rosas to win this, but I still think there's value here on Tercios. Um, I think that this fight could go to a decision, and I think Tercios' experience in the octagon with more quality opponents, I believe, is can test Rosas here a little bit, and we'll see now that if Rosas has a more than one round in him in a hard-nosed grind out fight, if Tercios can pick it up and push the pace in this one. So my pick here is Rosas, but I I would more I'm more confident in the over in this fight.
Got it. And yeah, right now, let me see if the what the over looks like. It's minus 145, open up at minus 115. So people are perhaps thinking what you're thinking, that this fight's gonna go over. I'm gonna keep it short and sweet so we can move on. I mean, I still think I have similar thoughts. I think that Rosas will win via sub or decision. If you want to check out my full breakdown of it, just watch the video at the Pure Pickers channel, the clip channel that we have. I don't think anything is going to change much. I mean, like you mentioned, I think Rosas Jr. is probably going to have better cardio in this case. So maybe I lean towards more Rosas Jr. winning more often than not this time. But I'm still staying away. I think that after just that C Rod debacle, I I don't think I could lay any kind of juice on this guy anymore. So we'll move on to the next fight. And this is a guy with a name that I would love to lay juice on. We have Umar Nurmagomedov versus Bekzat Almakhan. Umar Nurmagomedov, 16-0, undisputed, 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off of that KO victory over Ronnie Barcelos about a year ago. And he's actually been out, I think, I'm not sure. I think it's the shoulder. I'm not sure if it's the shoulder injury, but I think he's been out because of the shoulder injury. He was actually supposed to fight Corey Sandhagen in Nashville, I think last year, and that would have been a banger. That would have been a crazy fight. So too bad we were robbed of that, and we had to watch Corey Sandhagen out grapple Rob Font for 5 rounds. He's facing off against Bekzat, 17-1, 5-0 in his last five. It's obviously his UFC debut. Moving on to the odds for this fight, wish they were a little better. I mean, he opened up at a minus. Umar opened up at a minus 550. Now he's a minus 1,000. That's not a lot of value left for people who want to shove him. Um, Gerard, what do you think about Umar versus Bekzat here?
In this fight, I think Umar's the more complete fighter. He's got the proven dominating ability, and I think his stand up has improved. We've seen he can get someone out of there. Um, he is hard to hit, and he's got that Nurmagomedov grappling. Uh, for Begshot, he's unproven, but from the tape that I've seen, he looks pretty skilled. He's pretty skilled, and I like Begshot's timing on his 1-2 punch bursts that he times people with, and he's able to drop them with that as well. Um, Bekzat has good stand up and grappling, and I think his probably his best attribute is his pace. He's able to continue fighting at that high pace throughout the fight. Uh, but in this fight, I just think Nurmagomedov is just better. So yeah, and this is quite the first fight in the UFC to have for Bekzat. So I'm gonna go with the guy that looks like Khabib and his name sounds like Khabib. But yeah, I'm probably not gonna play the money line though.
So you're not gonna parlay. So what I'm here. You're not parlaying.
Uh, I think I'm gonna look for another
Yeah,
play. If not, I don't know. I don't like playing those minus
no,
900 plus.
I feel you, man. I feel you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that Umar is just the true successor to the Nurmagomedov name at 135 pounds. Off the charts chain wrestling, major sub threat. Striking is good and improving, as seen in the last KO victory that he had over Ronnie Barcelos. And we just saw Ronnie Barcelos, how good that guy is. Like, this guy literally won a fight with one shoulder against Christian Quinones, who's a kind of a good fighter, too. So, like, that KO has just aged really well over the last few days. Umar, I mean, he likes to use the kicks more than his punches. So, there's that. He attacks the head, body, and legs. His cardio is built from the mountains. This guy does not get tired. He looks the same that he is like he looks the same in the first round that he does in the third round. And this is the most insane stat that I've seen from him. He in terms of his striking defense is 75%, but this guy has absorbed 0.73 strikes absorbed per minute. Like, this guy hasn't even absorbed one strike a minute yet. I mean, unhittable guy. Um, I think that Bekzat is in for a thorough beatdown, in my opinion. So Bekzat is good. Don't get me wrong. I think that he's actually a good striker. He likes to find that KO. You mentioned that he does have some good kind of quickness and pop to his shots, right? That quick 1-2. I do
Mhm.
think that he's better in the pocket than he is at range, though. From what I've seen, his ground pound is strong, but trust me, that won't even matter in this fight in terms of the ground and pound. I think that he's actually a good offensive grappler, but he's gonna be shown levels to his defensive grappling, because I think what Umar's gonna do is just shoot on this guy and he's gonna take him down and just drown him. I think that Bekzat may be able to survive for one round. However, I do think he's gonna get subbed at some point due to this gap in grappling. So a pick here is, I'll give him some respect and I'll say Umar via sub, probably later rounds, like round 2 or 3. He's minus 1,000 now, but one thing that I've learned is that, except for one of the Abu Nurmagomedov, not him, but 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 Umar Nurmagomedov, this, you got to do it, and it's free money. Minus 1,000. I know that the value is gone at this point. It doesn't add much to your parlays, but you know I followed the sport since Habib Nurmagomedov, and my nickname for him was Free Money. So we got to keep on riding this train. This guy's undefeated, undisputed. Put him in a parlay. Just, looking for set and forget for me. Moved on to the next fight here. We have Matt Schnell versus Steve Erkseg. It's gonna be a flyweight bout. Matt Schnell set 16-7. He's actually coming off a loss to Mateus Nicolau via ground and pound KO, fighting against Steve Erkseg, 11-1. This guy's 5-0 in his last five, and he's actually coming off that decision victory over Alessandro Costa. As we look for the odds on this fight, we see that Erkseg is a minus 310, and he opened up at a minus 220. So, pretty good line movement there. Gerard, what do you think about Schnell versus Erkseg here in this flyweight bout?
Matt Schnell, he has the quality experience, but he doesn't have the quality wins from what I see. Um, he does have solid stand up and jujitsu, but from fight to fight, it looks like he looks like he has slower reaction time in these fights, and he's getting hit, he's getting countered. Um, but he's still a solid quality fighter. I think he just looks like he's aging here. As for Steve Erceg, I like that he sticks to a game plan. He kind of has that fight IQ and doesn't do anything wild. He minimizes mistakes. And I think Erceg is just a sharp fighter all around. Um, the one thing that he doesn't have though is that power in his shots. Uh, He has good stand up, and he does have some dangerous submissions that he can find, similar to Schnell at times. Schnell was able to have that Hail Mary submission on Sumadarji, that triangle choke. Uh, yeah, this fight, I think Matt Schnell is just facing a younger, better version of him in Steve Erceg. So for me, I have Erceg by decision, and I'm a high confidence on Erceg in this fight.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts to you. I mean, I think that at this point in his career, this guy's nickname is Danger, and he's a dangerous fighter to have money on. I think that he's the definition of kill or be killed. This guy either loses spectacularly or wins spectacularly, especially lately. He does have some slick grappling, like he can really end fights with that sub skills that he has. I do think that he's a better grappler than striker. He does like to counter more so on the feet. Even though he likes to counter, though, he does dish out some solid volume. And I think that this is his best attribute. This guy is a dog. I do think he's a really, like, he has the heart of a dog, never gives up and won't stop fighting. I mean, I watched that Maderji fight, and I thought this guy was going to the hospital. Like, this guy looked like he was about to die in that cage, and somehow he got like a fourth win or fifth win because he was out multiple. It looked like he was out multiple times during that fight, and just came back to get a triangle choke. So like, you can never count this guy out until you finish him. Granted, he has been finished multiple times, especially in the UFC. He's been knocked out in the UFC 4 times already. He's been sub once, so he has been finished. I do think that Ursay is the play here. It's just more solid everywhere. I don't think he's as dangerous on the feet as other fighters. I really like to compare him to the Basharat bros. I think that this is going to be another one of those guys that you can kind of just lay some units on and just have a good day with it. Because his first fight in the UFC, Steve Erceg, was against David Dvorak. And David Dvorak was a ranked fighter at that time, or close to a ranked fighter. So, although the flyweight division is a little thin, that's saying something when your debut fight is against David Dvorak. And then he 29-28'd easy Alessandro Costa. And Alessandro Costa is a decent fighter too, in my opinion. So I think this guy's just going to keep on moving up the ranks. And unfortunately, I think the UFC knows what they're doing here. They're feeding the vet with somewhat of a name value, a little bit older in Matt Schnell to Steve Erceg to really just kind of grow his hype a little bit more. So Erceg will also be the fighter who's 6 years younger in this fight too. So I think that Erceg, he will be able to just scramble too well for Snell. I think he's going to throw in some good jabs, leg kicks, calf kicks, and I think that he may even sub Matt Schnell at some point, depending on how this fight goes. So I believe that Erceg would just be too high IQ to just fall into any traps that Schnell may lay during the fight. And I'm going with Erceg via sub. I think he's a parlay piece for me. I would stick him with some parlays. Let's move on to the next fight here on the main card. We have Alex Perez versus Muhammad Makayev. This is another fight in the flyweight division. Alex Perez 24-7. He's 3-2 in his last 5. He's coming off of that submission loss to the current champ Alexandre Pantoja about a year and a half ago. Muhammad Makayev 10-0. He's 5-0 in his last 5. He's coming off of that submission victory over Tim Elliott. The interesting thing there is he was actually down on the judges' scorecard going into that third round, right? So if he didn't lock in that sub, he probably would have lost a decision there. So I didn't see that fight going that way, but like that just shows you that sometimes the judges see some different things in there. And I think that card was like in Abu Dhabi or something too, right? It was something crazy like that. So I mean, yeah, I
Yeah,
was very surprised by that. Man, that just shows me that they might have laid a potential trap there for us. And good thing, good thing the homie Makayev pulled through. Looking at the odds for this fight right now, we have Makayev at minus 300, opened up at a minus 325. Gerard, I'm actually interested to hear your thoughts because I know where I'm going to be in this fight, but I really want to see where you're at. What do you think about Perez versus Makayev here?
I think this fight, this is a textbook feed the name to the new guy in this fight, Makayev, because I don't see how such this is probably like the perfect style fight to feed Makayev, I think, because Perez, he just gets submitted. He just he's just yeah, he struggles against these dangerous submission artists who grapple, who come at you and don't let you get any rhythm in the fight, right? And that's exactly what Makayev is. Um, I mean, Perez is old now, and I think Makayev's kind of dangerous all around if you think of how he finds these finishes. He the past 3 fights, I think he's got 3rd round submissions.
Mhm.
So he hit the game winner 3 times in a row basically. And so Makayev's dangerous from round 1, round 2, round 3 to get a sub. Like you don't have to be dry to get a sub with Makayev. And Perez, I think he hasn't been active, man, and yeah, I see him getting subbed again in this fight. I think that's what I'm probably going to play, Makayev by submission in this fight. So yeah, that's my pick.
Are you going to parlay Makayev in any parlays?
Yeah, he's already in a parlay. Yeah,
For sure, for
yeah,
sure. Yeah, I mean, let's first talk about Alex Perez. I mean, I think that this guy, he had a pretty good run in the UFC in the beginning. This guy has been fighting the UFC since 2017, coming off a Dana White Contender Series victory where he subbed somebody. And he started off really great, fought all the way to fighting Joseph Benavidez, who was like a kind of flyweight legend, if you will. Really good fighter. Lost that fight, continued to win, and then he ran to Devson Figueiredo, got choked out. And if you look at there's a running theme with his career, a lot of canceled bouts, either due to like illnesses or like mainly weight cuts. Like this guy has a really hard time cutting down to 125 for whatever reason. I mean, his last fight, he was supposed to fight against Manel Kopp, and he had to withdraw again. And if you're just looking at this topology of him, I mean, he's had 10 canceled bouts in the last 3 years for a variety of reasons, right? Mostly due to weight cuts. So, um, yeah, it's gonna be hard to back a guy like that. Going just back to his skill set, though, I do think that he's a solid striker. Actually, a pretty good striker in my opinion. Like his leg kicks are really good. If you just watch that fight with him and Formiga, he destroyed that guy's legs and finished him via leg kicks. Not many leg kick KOs in the UFC, so he had one of them in the history of UFC. I do think that his takedown defense is actually kind of solid, but if he's fighting against a guy like Mokaev, who's a notorious chain wrestler, he's gonna have to keep on defending those takedowns day in and day out. 77% takedown defense. Once again, though, he's gonna have to keep on defending those takedowns. Now, he does have a 44% takedown accuracy. I think that he does have some good takedowns himself. He lands 2.84 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is per fight. So I actually think that I don't know if he's as good as a matchup that you're saying. I do think that he has some qualities that he could do to Makayev because we saw Makayev. He's been in trouble in some of these fights. Even though I love watching him, I mean, look at that. Hafe Fiao fight. This guy like literally tore his knee, and all credit to him though. He showed that he was an absolute dog as a heavy favorite. Tore his knee and still got the submission win in round three, 30 seconds away from that fight being a decision. So this guy goes for the finish, man. Like, and then the Tim Elliott fight, that would have been a loss on his record right there. Still won via submission. So if we're just looking at his record, I mean, he's fought some pretty good fighters. I think Cody Durden's a good fighter in that division. I think that Energy, he's kind of redeemed himself. I think he's solid. He got that victory. Malcolm Gordon, maybe not the best. I think that Hafel Fiao guy is actually pretty good, and Tim Elliott's a good vet. So this guy's been fighting some good competition. I do think that eventually, though, I think we're gonna see that Perez is there's the reason why he's pulled out so many times, and I think it's because his body is kind of deteriorating, and I think that this is kind of the feeding the old line to a young line. Because if you just look at this, man, they were trying to feed Perez to multiple guys throughout the last few years in the flyweight division, right? They try to feed him
Yeah,
to
some battlers.
France. I know these guys are really good. Like Askarov, that guy's good. Amir Abazi was supposed to potentially fight for the title. Kai Kara France fought for the title. I mean, Manel Kopp probably was gonna fight for the title, right? Like these are all like title contenders. So yeah, and also one key thing to know: this fight card was supposed to be in Saudi Arabia, I think. But obviously some things couldn't go through and I guess they didn't want to pick up this card. So I think that they were obviously trying to push Mokaev in a good way here. So I'm going with Mokaev. I don't know if he's gonna sub him. So it could be sub or decision, but man, like minus 300 right now for Mokaev, I still think that's a steal. He opened up at minus let's see, 325. So there's a 1 point he was actually at minus 400. So I mean, I think that you're still getting decent value there. I'm gonna fade Alex Perez and I'm going Makayev to keep his undefeated streak and keep it alive. So yeah, he's a parlay piece for me. I'm gonna be happy to stick him in some parlays. Let's move on to the next fight here. We got Vitor Petrino versus Tyson Pedro. So we have Vitor Petrino versus Tyson Pedro. Vitor Petrino, he is also undefeated, 10-0, 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off of that KO victory over Modestas Bukakis. He's fighting against Tyson Pedro, 10-4. He is 3-2 in his last five, and he's actually coming off of a KO victory himself over Anton Turcois. Moving on to the odds for this fight right now, we have Petrino open up at a minus 350, and now he's at minus 300. Gerard, what do you think about Petrino versus Pedro here for this co-main event?
I like this fight a lot. I think this fight could potentially be fight of the night. Um, this fight probably should have been what I think the main event. um, Petrino, man, this guy's a man's man. He he's scary. He can he can win anywhere. He can beat you anywhere. He could get the knockout, the submission, the dominating decision. Uh, his stand up has been improving from fight to fight, and I like that he's patient and he picks his shots and takedowns. And in this division, he kind of reminds me of like a Benoit Saint Denis
Wow.
in terms of the momentum and potential of going up the ranks in this, and just how dominating he's been. I think uh, Tyson Pedro, I'm a fan. He's one of my favorite guys coming out of city kickboxing. He has that technical striking. He can snipe when he's at his best. Uh, and Pedro, his stand-up defense holds up even when he's tired, when he's fatigued. He's still sharp defensively, and he does have some jujitsu skills himself. Uh, for me in this fight, I got Vitor Petrino, medium to high confidence. as a parlay piece for me. As much as I love Pedro, I just think that Petrino can win either KO, sub, or decision. And for Pedro, he's going to have to find a way to snipe Petrino, get some respect early. And I don't know if he'll get that. Petrino has a chin on him as well. And I think Petrino's been fighting more disciplined as from fight to fight from what I've seen. So those are my thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a kind of an interesting co-main event here for Petrino and Pedro, right? Because Pedro was he used to be that kind of young kind of star that they were trying to push up. If you just look at his record and opponents in the past, he has some pretty good wins. I think that he's a really solid all-around fighter. He can kind of do it all. I think that he's a little bit more dangerous than what people give him credit for. I mean, this guy's coming off of a KO win, right? So he has 5 KOs, 5 submissions in his career. In the UFC, he has 4 KOs and 2 submissions. I think he's just solid all around. And they also have both of these fighters have an interesting mix of opponents, right? So Pedro fought Bukakis, lost via decision to him, and then he fought Turcois, won via knockout. If you look at Vitor's record, I watched that Anton fight as it happened live. I watched that. I remember that, and I was on the Petrino side. Close fight, but Petrino still won that. He looked extremely gassed in that fight though, but he still overcame that gas. And then Bukakis, I mean, Petrino just knocked him out. So I'm kind of wondering why Pedro knocked Tricali out in round one, and it Petrino could not knock him out, and he had kind of survive a decision there. Maybe it was due more so to the grappling because Tricali was actually landing a lot of takedowns on Petrino. Petrino was getting back up though, and maybe Pedro just found that kind of perfect shot on Tricali in that fight. I do think that Petrino, he's one of these guys that looks extremely juiced. This guy, man, he looks like at times kind of like a Yoel Romero, the way like this guy carries that juice, like very heavy hands. His hooks are killer. I do think that he's improving his striking, but I mean his grappling was what kind of won me over when I first saw this guy because this guy just has some powerful takedowns, and he just even if he gets gas, he just does not give up. So that's what I like about fighters that I would want to kind of lay juice on is that they just don't give up and they keep on fighting through adversity and cardio issues. To me, though, I do think that Tyson is solid all around and he's well rounded enough to make me kind of hold off on this fight for now because Tyson does have some skills. Like he has a solid all around skill set. I think this is going to be a closer fight than what people are thinking. I feel like the odds right now minus 300. That's a little disrespectful with Tyson Pedro. I think that he works better as a dog than a favorite. Tyson Pedro is not a good favorite from what I've seen as far as his like track record, unless he's fighting like a kind of a can, if you will. But right now, Vitor Petrino is minus 300. As we look over the it's over under 1.5 right now, and that opened up at plus 130. Now is minus 150. So I'm just gonna hold off on this fight for now, but I do think that Vitor, I will lean towards him finding a KO at some point, but I think I'm not confident enough in him yet to actually lay a minus 300 juice on against a guy like a Tyson Pedro who is extremely well rounded. Moving on to the next fight, we have the main event of the evening. We have Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. Rozenstruik, 13-5. He is 2-3 in his last five, and he's coming off of that submission loss to Gel Time Almeida. Shamil Gaziev, 12-0, 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off of that KO victory over Martin Boudet. As we look for the odds of this fight, Gaziev opened up at a minus 132 and actually opened up at minus 150, and now he's at minus 132. Gerard, what are your thoughts on this main event that we have for the evening?
So Rozenstruik, he's been up against some top names. Uh, kind of a up and down career. Uh, I think he looks great when he strikes first, but when that doesn't happen, it looks bad for him. In his fights, I see that he gets he gets reckless kind of, and he has that obvious head hunting, try to knock you out, and he honestly he does he kind of sucks if he doesn't strike first, from what I've seen, and he could be slowing down now at this stage of his career, and again, I guess this is a growing theme. Maybe it's time to bring in the new blood in this on this card. Gaziev, he's hungry, he's dangerous, and from what I've seen, he's not as reckless as Rozenstruik. He kind of he measures and finds his moments to go in and throw a lot, and he can bang and grapple, something that Rozenstruik doesn't seem to be able to do as much, not too much in the grappling side. Uh, this is heavyweights, and I usually stay away. This could look like a volatile fight if it goes more than one round. Uh, but even with Gaziev at as a favorite, there might be value on Shamil right now, even as a favorite. In my opinion, I think Rozenstruik he'll probably, I wouldn't say probably because this is heavyweights, but I'm leaning Gaziev in this one. And I'm at a low to medium confidence here. I think Gaziev can get him out of there once he's able to get Rozenstruik on the ground.
Yeah. Um, I'm going Gaziev here. I learned a lot of valuable information during that Martin Boudet fight. I actually stayed away from that, but I played the I either played the let me see what I think I played the over and it didn't cash. But let me let me see how the fight actually ended. I remember, yeah, it was the yeah, I played the over. So, you know, unfortunately, I think that Rozenstruik, if you just look at his record, right, and kind of how he's fought, he's a very capable KO artist, has very dangerous hands. I think that he's actually a pretty good kickboxer as well, just more than we gotta give him credit for, right? He started off his career with 4 straight KOs in the UFC, ran into Francis Ngannou of all people, and then got KO'd in that first 20 seconds. One of the more entertaining KO losses that I've witnessed live. Um, and yeah, just kind of an up and down career ever since, right? And he's coming off of that kind of grappling loss to Jeldon Almeida, where Almeida just took this guy down and subbed him in the first few minutes of the fight. I think that people need to kind of realize Gaziev, I think he's the real deal. I didn't learn this information during the Boudet fight. If I did, I would have gone more so on Gaziev. But this guy actually trained, I believe, with Habib's father, and he played volleyball actually too. So this guy's got some athleticism in him. He's got definitely got some finishing ability. I mean, he's only had one decision win so far. The only bad thing about Gaziev, from what I've seen, is that he does have a tendency to gas. If you watch that decision split win that he had, there were some moments where he was losing that fight, but he, once again, kind of the same thing that I said about Petrino, overcame that gas issue and the cardio issue and just kept on fighting and secured a close split decision win. So I am a little concerned if this fight goes later because I mean Jairzinho, if anything, he's battle tested in the UFC. This guy has been fighting the UFC. He's gone to some decisions before. Sometimes he's lost. Sometimes he's won, but he has gone to decision. I will say that Gaziev will most likely finish him via submission. I think that we're gonna see the grappling come out of Gaziev here in this fight. I think he's gonna take him down and probably find the submission at some point because that's just how most of the opponents that fought Biggie Boy have kind of beat him, right? Is just by controlling him on the ground or taking him down. We saw Curtis Blades do that. Cyril Gahn did both, was taking him down and outstriking him. So, and obviously, he's been knocked out as well. So I do think that Gaziev will win. I am very tempted to just lay the juice on his money line because it seems very affordable. Like it's minus 132. And for a guy who has his background and decorated kind of background, I do think that he's a solid value there. So going to Gaziev here. That about does it for the fight night breakdown. I think that hopefully some more fights pop up throughout the week because right now we're at 11, and that's counting in the Rosas Jr. fight. So hopefully that even comes through. But yeah, it looks like a kind of short stacked fight card. So hopefully more fights come. But until then, Gerard, do you have any other thoughts on this card or anything at all before we hop off?
Um, I think there's some good fights in this one. Um, for the pure pickers, just stay tuned for Alex's Gigalocks, which is always fun. So yeah.
Definitely, definitely. And peer pickers and everybody else, guys. Alex already has a play in for this fight card that is visible for Pure Picks Pros members. I'm probably going to put in some plays myself later today. So, I think there's going to be some plays that we want to attack because I do think that there's going to be some line movement that moves towards the direction that I think is going to go. And we don't want to lose too much value on this specific card because I do think that this card is going to be more so about kind of getting that closing line value than in previous cards. So, just tune in for that one and obviously go to our website at purepicks.gg to find those plays for you guys. But other than that, we'll be back for best bets. Hope you guys have a great one. We'll be back soon.